Thanks, Megan, for the opportunity to pop in here and share with your listeners. Hi, I'm Merritt Ansa. I'm a life coach for Christian women who have a God-shaped dream. What's different about me compared to other coaches out there is that I believe God has already given you what you need to go after your dream. And I can give you some guardrails for moving forward, but where I'm really wired to help is in providing the environment in which you and your dream can flourish. And I've got something coming up in person where you can experience that environment in action. This is a real life event for Christian women who live local or near Colorado's Front Range. Do you struggle with taking action on a big idea, or maybe starting isn't your problem, but finishing is? How about some time and accountability to work on what's important to you? If you have an unfinished project that you would love to work on, Dream and Do is just the thing to help you snap out of it. Imagine 2 hours of uninterrupted time set aside once a month away from your home and that pile of unfolded laundry in order to work on your project. It could be writing or outlining that book that you want to write that's been on the shelf for a long time. It could be working on a business or ministry idea, writing copy for your website, lesson planning for your homeschool. But don't let the word dream in Dream and Do scare you. This is simply a space to make progress on what's been lingering on your heart or your to-do list, with encouragement and accountability baked in so that you can finish. Maybe you want to bring your family budget that you need to work on, or a creative project, or your Christmas cards, or meal planning, or your goal to catch up on digital organization. This is a quiet space to work without distraction, alongside other people doing the same. So sign up today for Dream and Do. It's happening the first Friday of the month in November and December. Then mark your calendar to celebrate, because you're finally going to get that lingering project off your list for good. The link to RSVP is merrittansa.com/dreamdo. That's merrittansa.com/dreamdo. Thanks. I can't wait to see you there.
Hey friends, welcome to the Only Love Today podcast. I hope you're doing well this week as we are starting to head into fall and getting the swing of all things routine in life. Today, I'm excited to reintroduce you to Chris Coursey, who I actually had as one of my first guests on the show. Today, we're going to talk about the 4 habits of joy-filled marriages. For over 30 years, Chris has been developing and practicing brain-based solutions to train people, families, and communities to make relationships work. Chris started out his career specializing in severe trauma and abuse, and also pastored a small congregation in Michigan for a number of years. Chris is a published author with over 10 books in print, including The Joy Switch. He co-authored his most recent book, The 4 Habits of Joy-Filled People. Chris enjoys spending time with his wife, Jen, and their 2 sons, Matthew and Andrew. In addition to studying, writing, jogging, and exercising, he enjoys the outdoors and is one of the rare people who actually likes the snow in Michigan. I pray my conversation with Chris today blesses you and encourages you and equips you with some tools for your marriage today. Let's get started. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for Chris Coursey and his work with Marcus, and just the path you have them on to just guide families and couples to better live life the way that you've created us to live life, but also to serve others within our home and outside of our home. And just the hope that we have in Jesus, but also the hope we have because our brains can change. And I know that there's probably a mom or a listener that's going to hear this that is feeling hopeless, and that they're always going to struggle with depression or anxiety or whatever it is, but that you have created our hearts and our brains, even how we process, to change no matter how old we are. And so I'm so excited to share that hope today. I just pray a blessing over Chris and his family. And thank you for my husband watching our kids for this time together. God, just bless our conversation and help it to bring hope and healing in our homes, but also in the people that press play on this podcast. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Well, welcome, Chris Coursey. Coursey? What do you say? I always forget.
It rhymes with horsey, so Coursey is fine. Coursey,
It
horsey.
is Coursey. Okay.
Yeah.
It is Coursey. Yeah. Very cool. Like a course. Just how it looks.
Is like a course. Yep, that's right. Yep.
You should have corrected me. I think I called you
Oh,
Coursey the first
that's okay. I get it a lot,
episode.
and that's totally fine. No worries.
Well, the Courseys. Well, why don't you
Yep.
just your 30-second, who are
Yeah.
you, your family, and what do you do
Yeah.
for life? What do you do for a living,
Oh, that's a
Mr.
great
Chris
question.
Coursey?
Yes. Well, the best parts of my life is being a husband and a father. My wife Jen and I have two sons who are teenagers, and Jen and I run a ministry called Thrive Today where we train relational skills. So we train these skills that ideally would have been learned in the early years, but for many of us, myself included, didn't learn a lot of these skills. So our ministry is really equipping people to learn and spread these skills in their families and communities. Now, I used to be a pastor back in the day of a small congregation.
Okay.
And yeah, we live in
Okay.
Western Michigan by Lake Michigan, pretty close to the lake. So it's a pretty place to live. Yeah,
That's awesome. And is that the lake that it looks like it's the ocean, like you
it
can't
does.
see
Totally. My
the other
wife's from
side?
California, and when she sees the
Oh,
sunsets
wow.
here, she's like, "This looks like the ocean." It really is very big and very pretty. Sunsets are amazing on this side
That's
of the
awesome.
state. Yeah, we love it here.
Love it.
Yeah,
That's super cool. Well, that's awesome. And I think it's good to hear that, we can just assume when we meet someone, oh, they've always been this way. They've always been joyful. They've always been this hopeful, energetic energy. But I think it's good to hear that, that wasn't necessarily your
yeah,
story, but here you
yeah,
are. God's brought you along and,
yeah,
filled you with joy and a lot of
yeah.
resources to share with the world
That's right.
about how to create a joy filled home,
Yes. Yeah, that's good
which is
news.
hard work. Yeah,
It is
it's
hard
good
work,
news.
and I like to share that with people. Like, when I started this journey, my joy tank was pretty low, and I didn't have a lot of these relational skills, as we call them. And so, thankfully, God's designed us where we can grow and change in new and wonderful ways. And so that's a
Yeah.
hopeful message.
Amen. That's so good. Well, today we're going to talk about 4 habits of joy filled marriages. We've previously talked about the 4 habits of raising joy filled kids, and
Yeah.
I'll link that episode in the show notes, which was so fantastic because
Oh,
I actually sitting on the couch next to my husband this last week, and we've just had a couple hard weeks of parenting at all
oh,
different levels. We're weaning a toddler and then kid
yeah.
drama, sibling drama, attitudes. And I was like,
Oh, it's hard.
look here, our kids are acting like crap because you and I are acting like crap.
Yep, that's
And
right.
we were just like, I'm like, hey, it's been a couple like hard days
Mm,
and a real hard week. And I know that it's you and me. And so I was actually going back in my brain,
mm,
okay, what do we need to do again? Because we got
yeah,
out of, it's like getting off the routine of the gym or
yep,
eating healthy. It's like, no, we got to get back to like, what do we do? Okay, we need to
yes,
attune,
yep,
you know,
good
build
for you.
bounds, correct with care, all the things. But it's
Yep.
hard because you can just be like, oh, we did all this hard work. Is it done now?
Yeah,
But it's not.
exactly. It's that's exactly right. And the way I think of this is like if you've ever been like in the ocean or floating on a raft or be playing on the beach, when you're out in the water, especially if you're floating, you don't realize that sometimes we're drifting from shore and we don't even realize it. We're
Yes.
talking with our friends or playing with our kids.
Yes.
Then you turn around and you're like, oh, wow, I've drifted, quite a bit. So I love what you shared because that
Yeah.
is the good news. It's like, whoa, we're drifting. Let's get back to
We're
shore.
drifting. We're just like correcting
Yeah.
because we don't have any emotional tank to care,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. That's right.
But
That's
it
right.
was good because we were both like, yeah, that's pretty much on us. Like
Yeah.
our kids,
Well,
yes, they do have a choice, but
yeah.
when your kid or your spouse says something and you're like, they're
Yes.
just they're parroting
Yes.
what I've said instead
Yep.
of being, you know. But anyway,
Totally.
I love this. I love this a little book again for families that I love a book that's not like this is going to take me 3 months to read.
Yes. Yes.
But
Me
you
too.
just get right to the heart of it, but you talk about something pretty profound because we always hear about in church and marriage books that communication, right, is
Yeah.
number 1. And you guys kind of push back on that and I liked that. You guys wrote that the key to a happy marriage isn't primarily like working out conflict or communication, but
Yeah.
rather the joy gap. in a marriage, which is the length of time between shared moments of joy. Can you talk about that a little bit and
Yeah.
what led you to, that discovery and, process of finding that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, communication plays an important role. We definitely don't want to downplay communication. But what we do want to highlight really is how God designed our brain and the parts of your
Mm,
brain that really run the communication and using the right words. Those parts of the brain can actually shut down when I can no longer manage what I feel. And that's when I'll say things that I really shouldn't have said, or I'll
yeah.
react in ways. And so, what we know now is that God designed the systems in the brain that really help us to stay our relational, joyful selves, runs on this fuel of joy. And so, when my joy tank has some joy in it, then communication is going to be a very effective tool to help us navigate conflicts. But if the
Okay.
joy is not there, all the wonderful communication skills in the world are not going to help us very much when we don't have joy in our fuel tank. And so that's really
Okay.
why, we wanted to spread this message, is that joy means we're glad to be together, and happiness is circumstantial, but joy is like, hey, I'm really glad I'm here with you. It's when my wife and I, we'll often say to ourselves, even in some of the hard times, like, well, I'm glad I'm with you while we're dealing with this stuff. I'm glad we're
Yeah.
together, that I'm not alone. I'm glad we can do this
Yeah.
together. Like that's joy. And so joy
Yeah.
really gives us strength, as Nehemiah says. Joy gives us strength to be able to recover when things go wrong, and be able to forgive, and be able to see others through heaven's
Yeah.
eyes from God's perspective. So we thought,
Yeah.
this needs to be a book for marriage. Marriage. We really need something about joy that helps couples grow joy in their families, but also like helps them be able to connect better and
Yeah.
be able to be in the hard stuff together without getting stuck or feeling alone in all of it. So joy is like, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're here, and I'm glad
It's
we
very
can do this
relational.
together. Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
relational process, which will then make everything else run better, especially communication. Like, when we've
That's
got
so
joy,
good.
it'll help us get through the hard stuff.
That's for sure. Because we know we can bounce back, right? And I can see that in different, like, loved ones or friends or community, like, just who's able to bounce back relationally quicker. And it's
Yes.
not sweeping stuff under the rug, but it's because they have that foundation of joy and
Yeah.
assurance in that, knowing in that. Can you talk a little bit about joyful attachment as a motivator?
Yes.
Trying to remember some of the things you shared in your book as far as, like, fear being a motivator,
Yeah.
like moms, like, lifting cars off of kids,
Yeah.
is like a
Yeah.
huge motivation,
Yeah.
right? Like, we can do
That's right.
crazy things. I'm trying to think of other things you might have shared, in
Yes.
contrast, but can you talk a little bit about joyful attachment? What is that? What
Yeah.
does that mean for
Yeah.
a marriage?
So one of the points we really try to make in the book is that your brain has two different fuels or motivators. One is this glad to be together joy. So I seek out my wife when I get home. I want to give her a big hug. And that joy
Yeah,
is like there's anticipation of something good here. Like, I'm going to see her.
sure.
I can't wait to connect with her. And if
Yeah.
my brain's not running on the fuel of joy, then the default is fear. And fear is like pain avoidance. So fear is trying to
Mm,
solve a problem in a survival sense. So it's like, how do I best solve
okay.
problems? And fear is good, as my mentor often says, fear is good for 90 seconds. And if you haven't solved the problem after 90 seconds, you still don't want fear being the motivator for you. And so fear is good, like the mother who can lift off a car to rescue her child, right? Like there's fear solves problems, and God designed us with centers in our brain that really run on fear to help us avoid when you touch the hot stove, right? When
Yeah.
there's a
Yep.
threat, like, okay, we need to do something quickly. The challenge with fear
Mhm.
is it's not relational. So like when fear's running in the brain, I'm not my relational self, like remembering who
Okay.
my wife is, remembering who my children are. Like fear is just really a non-relational experience. So if it's after a 90-second window, a short amount of time, we don't want fear running the show, because fear is going to cause us to lose the best parts of who God made us to be. And we get into
Mhm.
avoidance patterns. And so in the book, we talk about how joy, if your brain's running on joy, you'll scan the environment for that familiar face, that friend that you're going to have coffee with. And you'll scan for good things. With fear, you scan for threats. And so it's like,
Wow.
which one do we want? And when your
Yeah.
brain scans for threats, that starts affecting your body, adrenaline and cortisol, and like your body, your heart rate picks up, your pupils dilate. Like there's a physical reaction. And again, good
Yeah.
for a little bit, when there's a problem we need to solve without having to think about it. My child's about to cross a busy street. Praise God
But
that
we
I have
don't.
the
Yeah.
ability to like, whoa, I don't think about it. It's a reflex. But we don't
Right.
wanna stay there. It's not a place we wanna
Yeah.
camp at for very long, and that's where we want joy to come into the equation.
Is that and so, I mean, is it really that severe of a like your brain is either running on this or this? There's no middle ground?
There's really not, and it's almost like a teeter-totter. Like, people with a
Okay.
lot of joy, they're really hard branches to shake. It doesn't mean they don't feel fear, but their brain has a way
Yeah.
back to joy from fear. So if they get
Okay.
afraid of something, their brain knows how to get their joy back, where they return to their relational, glad to be together self.
Okay.
And with fear, it's kind of like the teeter totter. When joy goes down, then the default's going to be fear, and that's where I'm worrying
Yeah.
about threats or problems. And I'm like, my brain, I kind of fear map the world, where I'm like, okay, what do I need to be worried about today? What
Yeah.
threats do I have to deal with? What results do I need to get? And fear is exhausting. Like I grew up
Yeah.
with a lot of fear, and I can remember like absolutely exhausting to, be in a fear state day in and day out. It's just like, oh boy, it's hard. And thankfully we don't have to stay that way. Like we
Yeah.
can change for the motivator from fear to joy. It just takes a little bit of practice with, with what we're going to talk about today. And
Yeah.
that's the good news, because a lot of us,
Yeah.
we run on fear. We don't even think about it. This is my normal way of doing things. It's probably what
Yeah.
my family did. So like we don't think twice about it, but
Do
we don't have to
you
stay there.
Well, and that's such a good word to be reminded of, but I'm just thinking about maybe some like non-joy people or and when you think of that in your life, I wouldn't think of them as like being afraid. And I don't even know if they would do a
Yeah.
self-assessment and think of
Yeah.
themselves as running on fear. How do you help someone even recognize that they are running
Yeah.
on fear, not on joy?
Great
You
question.
know?
Yeah. And so one of the questions I would ask is this: I would say, hey, what's your peace levels? Like, do you live with peace? The biblical word is
Mm,
shalom, right? Because joy leads to peace. Fear doesn't lead to peace. And so in our brain,
okay.
I can't manage certain emotions or I can't manage circumstances growing up, fear, it might not be expressed outwardly, but my brain has learned to kind of shut down the volume of emotions. And so it's like, well, we
Okay.
don't do emotions here, which is actually a fear, because emotions lead to problems, So our
Okay.
brain can still be running on fear, but it doesn't show up with that fearful expression of like a deer caught in the headlights. It's basically the brain says, this is too big. This is too loud. I'm going to just turn it down, and I'm going to keep busy. I'm going to
Shuts off.
overwork. Yeah, it basically just kind of shuts all emotional stuff down. And even though
Wow.
it's a fear response, it doesn't have what you think of when you think of like somebody afraid of a threat. It's just there's a
Okay.
dullness. There's something's been dulled with my emotions. And that's like the byproduct of fear.
That's so good. I like that question. What's your peace levels?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
That's
really
right.
good
Yeah.
assessment.
Yeah. It's a good
Because
lens.
peace is yeah, that's a good question. Are there any other like we talked a little bit about the neuroplasticity of our brains. Could you mention just, other things that you guys have found in your research related to this that have just really been like affirming for the neuroscience
Yes.
behind the exercises that you guys have written and everything you've shared in your book?
Yeah, this is, there's some really cool insights. Now, the more we discover about how God designed the brain, it's just fascinating. And it's, the more you appreciate scripture because you just start seeing all this point of scripture. One of the
Mm,
things, when we think about attachments and really forming bonds, when you're glad to be with others, you're going to form a bond with them. Your brain really likes approaching a joyful face. So if you think about this as a couple,
yeah.
right? Like when you see someone's face light up to see you, and they're just, maybe you hear it in their voice, they're just genuinely glad it's you that walked into the room, you're going to bond with that person, right? And so I often
Yeah.
hear from couples like, the first year of their married life, or when they were dating and preparing for, their wedding, there's a lot of joy. And so what we know about the brain is when you are building joy with someone, your brain says, you are now my people, right? We really bond with
Hmm.
people when
Yeah.
we're sharing joy. And the nice thing about joy is the part in the right hemisphere that really runs joy, we call it our joy center in the brain.
Okay.
It grows throughout the lifespan. Every time you see someone who's glad to be with you, and you see a face light up, or you're the sparkle in their eyes, or you see your child's missed you and they run and give you a hug, this part of the
Yeah.
brain grows every time you experience joy. And it's the part of our brain that really helps us to stay ourselves when hard stuff happens. And so when there's joy there, I'm better able to stay my relational, flexible, peaceful self, even though it's been a hard day and,
Yeah.
hard stuff's happened and I'm just feeling overwhelmed. Like joy physically changes the brain. And that's just a
Wow.
profound discovery. Like, wow, like we're made for joy. And so I think it says something about what God had in mind, that joy is the thing that our brain prefers over anything else. Infants will gravitate toward a joyful face opposed to an angry face or a worried face or a
Yeah.
hopeless face. Like they will gravitate toward a joyful face. Like we're wired for joy. So I just think that is such a beautiful reflection of God's, handiwork, that he made us for glad to be togetherness. And it's relational. It means it's a relationship. And when you share joy,
Yeah.
your brain's like, thank you. I really like this. I like this person. They're glad to be with me and I enjoy being around them. So it
Love
really
that.
changes us from the inside out in profound ways.
Have you seen that section of the brain just grow in people as you minister to them and do training? Like, have you seen you guys call it the joy gap?
Yeah.
Have you seen the shrinkage of that or,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. One of my favorite things, we do 5-day trainings where we're training like joy skills and stuff. And it's kind of funny because sometimes people come to the training just because their spouse wants to do it. They don't really know what they're getting into,
Yeah, okay.
but they're there because their spouse wanted to go. So it's kind of fun to see them on like, the night before the training begins. They're like, I don't know what I've gotten into here. And it's very interactive. We do a lot of exercises and it's fun to
Okay.
watch them as the week goes on. When they actually start building joy, you'll see them smile. You'll see tears sometimes. Like you'll see people like start to come alive, like turning on a lamp in a dark room. And they'll
Wow.
often say something like, I can almost feel my brain growing here. It's like, I don't know what exactly is happening, but like I can feel something changing in my brain.
Wow.
But like over time, a little bit, that's why we have like short exercises in the book. When couples practice these exercises, they're often surprised at what they feel starts to shift. And, they'll feel something different, but they'll have coworkers or family members that says, hey, what's changed in you? You're different. Like, why are you smiling more?
Mm,
Like, what is it
yeah.
about you? Something's changed and I don't know what it is. And they're like, well, I'm trying
Yeah.
this joy stuff and I'm trying to see if it helps. So
That's
it's
so
really
cool.
fun. Yeah, it's fun to watch people, whether it's at a training or just if they do like a book study or they just practice with their spouse. It kind of sneaks up on them.
Yeah, and so let's talk about those exercises. I
Mhm.
mean, 15 minutes a day, that's not very long. And you're saying
No.
that, just if you just took time to do a little practice of this each day, it really helps that much?
It does. I kind of liken it to like just lifting weights. I was talking to my son last night about lifting. He wants to get in shape. And I was saying, buddy, even if you do like 10, 15 minutes of curls or push-ups or sit-ups a day, like a little bit is going to go a long way for you. You just have to take a little bit of time and do it. And that's really
Yeah.
why we created those exercises for like 10, 15 minutes, because, you know, even on, if you're watching a show together and there's commercials, like mute the TV and do a part of an exercise. Like it doesn't have to be complicated or really, really long. You know, joy,
Okay.
a little bit of joy goes a long way. And like we do like 3 to 5 minute exercises at our trainings, which are part of the exercises in the book. And people are
Okay.
surprised, like a little bit of practice, a little bit of joyful, peaceful interaction.
Yeah.
Well, I needed that. Like, you know, I was really
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed from my day, and just that little bit of connection can go a long way. And that
I
really makes
guess I
it
could see
digestible.
that. That's so good. And I guess I could see that when you think of somebody checking you out at the supermarket or something,
Yeah.
grocery store, where something funny happens, or you're just like, oh, thanks, you made my day, or
Yeah.
vice versa. Somebody says that to you because you did something to them. And it's really those little things, those little
Huge.
moments, I guess, can have a huge impact.
Huge.
Can you
Yeah.
can you bring us through the 4 habits? I think will kind of blow your mind that they're pretty simple
Simple.
exercises that are attainable.
Yes.
Doesn't everybody want something attainable in their life, you
Yeah,
know,
that's right.
to work towards? So,
That's right.
yeah, let's talk about those for a second.
Okay. Yeah. So we call the 4 habits plan. And then that just stands for play together, listen for emotions, appreciate daily, and nurture a rhythm. And so play together. Play is just really a reflection of the joy that we have. And, you know, when my
Okay.
wife and I go out on a date night, we connect. We will go to the beach and walk on the beach. Oh, it's doing something that's fun. It's spontaneous. You know, it's an expression of the friendship and the relationship that you have with your spouse. So play is actually really good for your brain. Like a lot of good things happen in your brain when you play, and it really activates joy, which is really cool, and it
Mm,
helps us to get back to our relational self. So God hardwired us for play.
I love that because I would even insert that when things are getting tough as a mom, we're starting to spiral down, do a
Yes.
sing-songy,
Yeah.
horrible, awful dance,
Yep.
and then everybody's giggling and
Yep.
laughing. Or,
That's
now that
right.
my kids are older, it might be like throwing a half cup of water on somebody
Yeah.
and starting like a
Yep.
playful something, but it does shift. Just
Does.
spontaneous. And
Yeah.
I think I like that you said that is sometimes fun too.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have
It's
to be
fun.
$100 date night.
That's right. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't have to be expensive or costly at all. You know, it's really just
Yeah.
doing something together that's fun and playful and meaningful. It doesn't mean childish, but it'd be like childlike, you know, just
Yeah.
children love play and they don't worry
Mhm.
about how they look, right, when they're playing. It's just having fun with your spouse. And the L for listen for emotion is really learning to keep
Mhm.
relationships bigger than problems. And so we're learning to recognize the emotion behind what our spouse is telling us. So if my wife's telling me about something hard from her day, if I'm listening for emotion, I might notice, oh, honey, it sounds like you're really sad because your friend had to
Mm.
cancel and you were so looking forward to seeing her. So it sounds like you're really
Yeah.
sad. Is that what you're feeling? Like, what's going on there? So it's just noticing, what is it your spouse is feeling? What are the emotions your spouse is expressing? And just being able to name it, affirm it, and validate it, right? We don't have to fix it. A lot of us guys, especially, we like to jump in and fix problems. There might be a time for that,
Yeah.
but if you just listen for emotion, connect at a heart level, that's going to
Okay.
go a long way. And that helps our spouse feel seen, heard, and understood. So we listen
Okay.
for emotion. And the A is just appreciating daily. And so appreciation is what I call package joy. It's like a gift to unwrap, you know, like a birthday
I like that.
gift. And so we practice appreciation when we remember joyful moments. So I might say,
Mm.
with my wife or my family, you know, at dinner time, hey, what were some meaningful moments from your day? I'd love to hear about it. What was good for from your day, or what was satisfying from your day? And when we remember the joyful moments, our brain responds as though we're reliving the moment all over again. So it's pretty
Okay.
amazing that just by remembering, like everybody loves fun stories, you know, like what's some of your most joyful memories from your life or from your your wedding day
Yeah.
or like just sharing those stories, it actually sparks joy in the moment when we can remember the good stuff. And so that's a fun one. Like, my wife and I love
That's awesome.
appreciation. Yeah, just is something we
Mm,
do a lot in our house. And then the
that's
end
awesome.
is nurture a rhythm. So now, joy always should lead to rest. Like if you've ever seen an infant
Okay.
build a lot of
Mhm.
joy with the parent, one of the things the infant will do when they're building joy and they're smiling or they're laughing, they will break eye contact and look away. And when they look away, that's their cue. Their brain said, hey, I need a breather. This joy's
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
I love it. But you
Yeah.
know what? I need to catch my breath. And so they will look away and avert their gaze. All that means is, okay, now I just need a breather. Let's pause. Let's catch our breath. And then infant will look right back in just a matter of seconds and want to build some more joy and have some more fun again. So it's this joy. We're glad to
Mm,
be together, but it should lead to resting because without resting, even joy can become overwhelming. It's like, whoa, we love joy.
okay.
We love oxygen, but even too much oxygen can actually be bad for us. So it's like, what is that
Okay.
rhythm? So it's a rhythm of connecting and it's a rhythm of resting. And so a lot of the exercises always will do some kind of connection, but it all will also lead to resting. Like, okay, just hold each other for a few moments or hold hands and close your eyes and just let yourself rest for 30 seconds. And it doesn't have to be long at
Mm,
all, Megan. It's just like we
yeah.
connect, we look away to rest for a moment, we connect. It's just that little rhythm and that helps to keep
Yeah.
everything a little more manageable, uh,
I love that.
in our interactions.
That's so
So,
good. Yeah, I
yeah,
think the hardest part would be nurturing a rhythm because if you're,
yeah,
parenting young children and just
very
what does
hard.
that look like? Because the rhythm's
Yeah,
just constantly changing.
totally,
But
totally.
you just keep pursuing one another and it's okay that, we can't have this I'll be happy, we'll do these
Yeah,
things when
right. That's right.
we have to be okay with taking some small bites of time or whatever it looks
Yes,
like now to
that's it.
pursue one another.
Yep, you're
For the
right.
marriages that have moved to like more of a disconnection, because
Hmm.
I'm sure we can all maybe think of people that we know that have been married for decades that
Yeah,
you just wonder what their marriage is really like
yeah,
because there's just not joy there that you see or you don't we don't know everybody's story, God does, but for maybe people that think this is the marriage I'm in, this is the life I'm in,
yeah.
and maybe both partners don't want to, do everything. How do you come back from disconnection? Do you just start doing these little four habits? Is
Very
that the way back? You
That's an
know?
excellent question. Yeah, I mean, when couples kind of drift a little bit, it can feel really hard, like you're trying to trudge through a swamp and just it's like you're going through the motions. And so that's what's good
Yeah.
about this journey is joy is like kindling a fire. The fire's been out for a while. Let's get some little pieces of wood here, some kindling, and let's start a little fire. So that's where time together, like oxytocin's a bonding hormone that God gave us. And what
Yeah.
oxytocin does, like when you're holding hands with your spouse or you're cuddling, you're connecting, you're hugging. Oxytocin levels increase for men and women, and it actually helps us feel connected. And joy and oxytocin is very closely related because when you're connecting in some way, there's eye contact. You're sharing stories, some of your favorite joy stories. You're holding hands, which is going to help oxytocin. But joy is like a euphoric experience. So when you remember our special memories, some of our best memories,
Mm,
and maybe you're holding hands or you're quieting together, those kinds of things can really spark some joy and get those flames
yeah.
going again. When you're in it, it feels like you just need a whole lot to jumpstart this thing. But the reality is a little bit will go a long way. It's
Okay.
connecting and being glad to be together. And sometimes it's quieting, like some of the exercises, like, hey, just sit
Yeah.
with your spouse and cuddle for 10 minutes and then talk about what that was like. Because that's going to get
Okay.
oxytocin going. It's actually going to get the
Yeah.
bond stronger when we do stuff like that. So yeah, I would say, stories, doing simple exercises can help.
Hmm.
And just taking a little bit of time, like I said, even if a couple's watching a show in the evenings, pause the commercials, look at your spouse, hold hands, hug, tell your spouse what you enjoy about your spouse. All of these things are all going to actually help to get some joy going. It just takes
Sure.
a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, no matter how much you've drifted, how long you've drifted. God designed our brain until the day that we go home to be with Jesus. Our brain is fully capable of jump starting with joy. My 102-year-old grandmother,
Mhm.
before she passed, was still building joy with my sons and
That's
connecting with
cool.
them. So it's like we're always capable
Yeah.
of growing some joy no matter what's going on. But small steps go a long way, because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to try looking at your spouse or sharing something when maybe there's been some drifting.
Sure. I was going to say it might be awkward for
Yeah,
some
it
people,
could.
but that's okay. That's
Yeah,
probably common if
it
you've
is common.
disconnected at that
Yeah,
point.
that's right. That's exactly right. And I would sit with couples, when I'm working with couples, I'll just tell them if they're open for it. I'll say, okay, if you can, hold hands and look at each other and tell your spouse what you enjoy about your spouse, what you see God has placed in your spouse. And these are often couples that really don't look at each other very often. And
Anymore.
you'll see the
Yeah.
effects of just, 5 minutes of connecting like that. They leave the session with a smile on their face, but it's small steps.
Yeah.
Some of us just need to jump into the cold pool, and that's the way we do it. Some of us want to get in on the steps,
Mhm.
holding on to the railing a little bit at a time. Whatever works,
Yeah.
just, be tender with yourselves, but a little bit will go a long way. And
That's so
that's what
crazy
we
that
want.
we even like, I'm so thankful for what you do, but it's crazy that we even need this, that
Yeah,
because we get,
it is.
relationships are hard work, but we get
Yeah,
distracted by careers and kids
yeah,
and
totally.
all these different kinds of things. So,
That's
just
right.
whether it's in your own life, being joy filled and working some exercises for that, but then in your parenting and in your marriage, but they really do all tie back together. And I think it
Yes.
is awesome that just a little bit goes a long way. Can
Yeah,
you share
it
a little
does.
bit about you have a curriculum for like small groups or life groups? Can you share a little bit about that, what
Yeah.
that looks like, how people could
Yeah.
do that?
So we have, in the book, there's like, exercises at the end of the chapter. And my co-author, Marcus Warner, and I, with our wives, we actually created video curriculum where like couples can, get a little teaching. We do a little teaching, and then we'll lead people through exercises. And so the fun
Okay.
thing, like you're going to get a lot out of the exercises if you and your spouse do it and nothing else, like that's going to be good. That's a win. Like that's really good. Sometimes couples say, you know what, I don't want us to do this alone. Let's bring in a few friends. And other couples will come in and they're like, hey, let's do this together. You're doing the exercises with your spouse. You're not like, with others. It's just you and your spouse, but everybody's practicing at the same time. And then you talk about it as a group. So the
Okay.
curriculum's really helpful if like we just try to like walk people through it. Like, okay, here's the focus, here's a little teaching, and now let's actually practice this exercise, and we'll walk you through it. And it's really fun to see what
Okay.
happens. Like I think most people are surprised when they do it because they don't know what to expect, or they just feel it's been a hard season and they're just not sure
Sure.
change is even possible. But a little
Yes.
bit of practice really does make a difference. And then your brain says, hey, that wasn't so bad. Let's do that again. I want to try that
Yeah.
again. And that's what we
Okay.
want. We want that for couples.
Kind of in closing up here, what is the hardest habit that you see people struggle with to implement in their lives? What is the most pushback or the thing that
Ooh,
you see people struggle with the most?
boy. Yeah. So each one could have its challenges in a way. I would say it's a really close draw between playing together and listening for emotions, because listening for
Okay.
emotions can be a challenging one because we're so used to just problem solving. Because we're
Yes.
tired, our lives are full, we've got little ones running around, like
Yeah.
we've got a lot going on. And so when couples try to connect or talk about stuff, which they need to talk about stuff from the day or problems that need to be fixed, when we don't listen for emotions or share emotions and go like, wow, that's really hard, like validation, right? You've had a really hard
Yeah.
day. That's what
Yeah.
actually creates connection when we feel like someone's with us. So I'd say listening for emotions can be a
Okay.
hard one, especially, I notice with a lot of us guys that's hard for many of us. But to play together, right? At least with my wife, when we first met and were together, like she thought I was always so serious because I didn't play a lot. But once we got married, I love play. Like, oh yeah, I love play. Like, let's go do this. And when we play, it completely changes our connection and it changes our day. When we go too long without playing, we just kind of get stuck in a rut of, just focusing on hard stuff, dealing with hard
Groundhog
stuff.
Day.
Yes, that's a great example. That's exactly what happens. So I would say
there's always something to do.
There's always something to do. And and in each season of life, like each different stage that we've been in our marriage and with kids and everything, like it's hard. I mean, there's just a lot going on in our lives and we are tired and we are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But a little bit of like connecting in emotions, like, hey, how are you feeling today? What's going on? How did that affect you when you had to deal with that problem at work? Being able to just like put words to it and then share it and validate it. It's not, we don't have to swim in the pool for long, but at least help each other to feel seen, heard, and understood. That puts the brain in a very happy place when we have someone who we feel like they're with us. We feel known, as Kurt Thompson would say, when we're able to do that.
That's so good. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other like upcoming events? So most of my listeners are US, but are there any upcoming events or resources you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, we have a 28 Days of Joy resource. It's a free resource. If couples just want to it's a free resource. You could do simple practices designed to build joy for your brain at the website 4habits.org. So just like it's 4 habits, and that resource is there. People can get that. We have tons of resources on our ministry website as well. We do habit builder groups, like we have joy groups where people can do an online joy group and practice exercises in Zoom. It's always better if you're doing the exercises in person with a spouse or with your family. But we have lots of resources available to help jumpstart joy. And that website is thrivetoday.org, just thrivetoday.org. So like lots of good resources and assessments and exercises and all of that good stuff.
And books, right?
And books, yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Some fun little books as well. Yeah.
Fun little books. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming to share today and have this discussion. It's, a selfish endeavor on my part to get retrained and remember and to be a better mom and wife. But also I know that just these little parts, like we can be overwhelmed with, I need to learn how to do this well and this well and juggle this, especially as a believer, because there's so many awesome resources out there. But I know that, some people in life who might describe themselves or their partner as an Eeyore, it is okay to be more melancholy. You don't have to be severely bubbly like me.
You don't. That's exactly right.
You can, but at the same time, I pray that this conversation just does give hope to the listeners that we can keep changing and keep growing joy. And we don't have to listen to the enemy who says, you're never going to feel like this again or experience this, that we can change. And I love that you said your 102-year-old grandma is, still growing joy.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
there's hope.
awesome.
There's hope. No matter where we are, there's hope. And thank you, Megan. Awesome. I appreciate you and all that you're doing. Thank you for spreading the word.
Yes, so glad to have you. Hey mama, have you ever wondered what your God-given gifts actually are? The ones that shape how you love, lead, and show up in motherhood? I created a free spiritual gifts quiz just for moms to help you discover the unique way God has wired you, not just for church life, but for life in and outside your home, everywhere you go. In Ephesians 4, we're reminded that Christ gave us the gifts of apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher. to equip his people to bring glory to him and to do good works. Why don't you take a few minutes to find out how you were made to build God's kingdom right where you are? Head on over to onlylovetoday.com on the resources page to find your free spiritual gifts quiz. I hope to see you there.